So, dear nieces and nephews and families, um, Caroline and I just love you all so much and are so with you and so wish that we could be there with you during this time. But as was true in March with your mom, so it's still true that we just can't. We just can't be there. Lord willing, the time will come when that'll be possible. And I believe it will be possible again. It's like I remember when I was serving the church in Caledonia, Illinois, outside of Rockford, and where some of the younger ones of you will remember Plank Camp. Uh, we'd had a really bad drought, and this was a farming community. And I asked one of the farmers, I mean, it was a really bad drought, 1988 in northern Illinois. And I asked one of the farmers, so what are you going to do? And he went, well, it'll rain again. I went, of course. This time will be over again. We will be able to be together again. We'll be able to go down to Virginia to visit, and we'll be able to fly out to California to visit. But that's not the case now. That makes it hard. So I just thought I'd do this little way of sharing some memories and some thoughts. I hope you liked the pictures that I sent. You may have seen those before, but two pictures of those kids when they were in high school. One was obviously, I would think, a prom picture. And didn't you love those black and white curtains in the Plank home at that time? Oh, those were horrible. I look at that and it's just horrible. And the other one was taken on our sidewalk, and I'm not sure what that was for, what that was about. They clearly were all dressed up and ready to go someplace, apparently. Caroline, you want to say hi?
Are you recording?
Yeah.
Oh. Hi, family. You guys have so been in our prayers these last few weeks, and especially this last week. And we love you.
Yeah.
Wish we could be there to give you hugs in person.
Yeah.
Yeah. Big hugs to all of you. Safe journeys when you travel.
Yeah.
Know that we love you.
Yeah, we do. So I'm just going to share some memories of stuff.
Okay.
So,
I'll share a memory too.
Okay, go.
I want to share that I remember when Steve and I were dating, and the first time I met your dad.
Did I tell him the lead into that?
Oh, sure.
Well, so I was talking to your mom and dad before Caroline and I were together, and I had mentioned, that I met this wonderful young woman, and I just really thought a lot of her. And there was this pause, and your dad said, "What is she, 18?" And I went, "No, she's 20."
just
I know.
20. Anyway, when I met your mom and dad, I was really nervous about meeting them because of the age difference and all of that. Anyway, your mom and dad ended up driving to my parents' house for some reason.
Oh, yeah.
And they pulled up, and Steve and I went out, and your dad could not have made me feel more comfortable. He was so kind, funny, warm. I just was, all of my worries just completely evaporated. And your dad has always been just so kind to me. And I loved him deeply. And we didn't spend as much time with him over the years as we might have, but I sure do love him. So I'm with you guys. I feel your loss.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah. So, some thoughts and memories. I remember when your mom and dad were dating in high school, and I was this, I was this kid. I was probably 7, maybe 8. I don't know. And Rich was going to come over and was going to take your mom and me to go putt-putt golfing. I was so excited. I'm sure your mom was not as excited to have her 7 or 8 year old younger brother hanging around when she was out with her boyfriend. But Rich was great and said, "Yes, yes, Steve, we'll come. I'll pick you up and we'll all go putt putt." And I was so excited. And then it rained. And I remember sitting on the front porch of our house in Joliet, looking at the sky and looking at the rain and knowing that we couldn't go putt putt golfing. And I was so disappointed. Your dad was pretty special about that. I remember the time when they came back to Joliet after they'd gotten married and they were going to try to trade in their black 4-door, I think 1956 Chevy. And for some reason, I went with them when they went to the car dealers to talk about getting their car traded. We all got out of the car and waited while Rich talked with one of the sales guys. He said that the sales guy said he'd consider the car as a trade-in, but would need to drive it around the block first. And he pulled out, and Rich, as seriously as could be, looked very worried and told Jan and me how concerned he was that the car might not even make it around the block. And how relieved he was when the guy actually drove the car back in and said, "Sure, let's go in and talk." But that was funny. I don't know that it's going to make it around the block. I hope it does. Because there was no way they were driving that car back to California. When they lived in their upstairs apartment in Morris, Illinois, I remember driving over to spend a weekend with them. And I remember spending that Saturday afternoon sitting with him at the kitchen table and filling out postcards with every conceivable solution possible for a crossword puzzle contest. We must have filled out and addressed 100 cards or more. And despite being, like me, an old guy, he was easily able to keep up with internet things like email and news and contests. There wasn't a day, I don't think, that I knew him that he wasn't doing some contest or another. And I never wanted to fill out postcards with crossword puzzle answers ever again. Your dad, of course, survived a rough childhood. Wondering at times if anybody ever really had wanted him because of, his birth parents and then his adoptive parents and then the woman who raised him. And then decades later, of course, finding at least most of the pieces of the puzzle about his growing up years. And that was a neat thing. Rich, of course, was in the Air Force, then in civil service, ending up working at the Pentagon as a budget analyst. Why would you want to work with budgets, especially at the Pentagon, with the crazy budgets they would have had? But he did it, and he did it well, because he was there for a long time. He had such mixed feelings, of course, when 9/11 happened, and especially about whether or not to call the wife of one of his friends that he knew was still working, because your dad had just retired not long earlier, who was still working when the plane was hit. He didn't know, do I call her and find out, do I get reassured that he's okay? But if he was one of the ones that was injured or killed when the plane hit the Pentagon, he didn't want to add extra pain to this woman. He was torn by that. He was affected by that. This was the place that had been his work home for a couple of decades. That was tough for him. But he absolutely loved living in the DC area. And I know that was tough for you Californians and New Mexico Arizonans. But he loved it. He loved living in the capital of this nation that he loved and served all his working life. He did. Then there was, of course, this baseball thing that he and the boys did. And a couple of times, more than a couple of times, I think, that they actually let me join the club because there was baseball. We loved baseball. And, of course, all together now, the Cubs. Rich and I talked with each other after the World Series when the Cubs won and realized it'd only been 108 years, but by golly, our Cubbies pulled through. Um, this is a particularly tough year for all of us, but especially for you kids, and grandkids and great grandkids. Um, in 1992, Queen Elizabeth. Hang in there, you'll see where I'm going. You know me and stories. I got to tell stories. 1992, Queen Elizabeth was delivering a speech on the occasion of her 40th anniversary of her reign as queen. And it had not been a good year. Their second son, Andrew, had been separated from Sarah. The Queen's daughter, Anne, got divorced. One of her nephews committed suicide. Lots of dirt was coming out about Diana. There were pictures, there were stories, there, just all books written, magazine articles. It was not nice. The Queen was pelted with eggs by angry demonstrators when she went to Dresden in Germany. There was a fire in Windsor Castle. And then, of course, finally Charles and Diana separated. And at the speech, I remember watching a clip. She said, "This is a year we shall not remember with great fondness." Talk about an understatement. And then she said, "In the words of one of my more sympathetic correspondents, it has turned out to be an annus horribilis," a horrible year, devastating year. This has been a devastating year for you all, with, of course, the death of your mom, my sister, on March 15th, and then Rich's passing on the 30th. I remember I was, 56, I think, when your grandpa died. And I remember thinking, I'm coming close to 60 years old. I feel like an orphan. Because Dad, who I depended upon and who I cared for the last few years of his life, who we visited every day, more than once a day, when he was in the memory support unit with his dementia, with his Lewy body dementia. But he was still there, and suddenly he wasn't. That was tough. To have lost both of your folks in the same year, both of your grandparents, for those of you, both of your great-grandparents, for those of you. I can't imagine. And tie that into the fact that the November 21st before that, in 2019, your Uncle Bill died. In my generation, that's half of my generation of family members. So Pat's still around, Caroline and I are still around, but Bill and your mom and your dad are gone. That was a tough 13 months. And then let's throw a pandemic on top of that and political chaos on top of that. This has been a tough year. So take time to be gentle with yourselves. Make time to be gentle with each other. Take time to grieve. You all know this. Grief is not an emotion. Grief is a process. Grief is a journey. And it takes time. I remember one of the things I often used to do to go visit Dad when he was in the memory support unit was, after I was done with night meetings, I'd run out to Mabel Rose place and say goodnight to him. And this was probably 7, 8, maybe 9 months after he died. And I finished a meeting and I got in my car and said, well, I'll run out to see Dad. Oh, crap. No, I won't. Grief takes time. So take time. Know that grief is okay. Know that it's just going to hurt for a while. And for a while, I mean a long while. In areas of Greece, they give people 5 years after somebody dies to be in grief. And they just all kind of know, okay, for the next 5 years, this person's just going to be kind of loopy, kind of crazy sometimes. And that's okay. We'll love this person because they're just in grief, and we know that. So just know that that's going to be the case. But as you're working through your grief, I know you all love the Lord. That doesn't make grief easier, by the way. To know that your mom and dad are with Jesus and reunited doesn't make your grief any less. But I love this verse from St. Paul, 1 Thessalonians 4, verses 13 and 14. He said, we do not want you to be uninformed, brothers and sisters, about those who have died, so that you may not grieve as others do, who have no hope. That's what I hang on to. You know, being the baby of the family and having lost my sister, having lost both of my brothers-in-law, I hang on to that. This is grief, but it's not hopelessness. So my prayer for all of you all is that you do the grieving you need to for the next months and maybe years to come. But remember, you don't grieve without hope. Without hope of reunion, without hope of God's love and care for you now, and without hope that you're not walking this journey alone, because Jesus is walking with you all every step of the way. And know that I got your back. And anytime any of you need anything, just holler. And when situations allow, I'll be there. But even if I'm not there physically, I'll be there. So just know how very, very much we love you guys. How much I wish I could be there with you. I'll be tuning in the services on Monday, both of them via Zoom. Thank you for that link. Technology, I'm so grateful for technology in these times, because even apart, we can be together in some ways. So hang in there. Know I love you, and I'm praying for you all. And God's blessing and peace.